live from the Real Guppy Dockside Learning and Multimedia Center. It's the Real Angler Podcast with Community Kevin Brannon, brought to you by AFTCO Fishing Apparel and Tackle, designed to perform. Channel Island Sport Fishing, offering deep-sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats, and more. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. See what's out there. Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. And now, here's your host, Community Kevin Brannon. Today's guest, Diana Garcia, Capitol Hill Ocean Week Manager.
Welcome to my living room, my front yard.
I love it. I love it. It's nice to be outside. It's rainy over here today, unfortunately.
We have the most terriblest internet at our learning center. And since we're talking to DC, we didn't want any kind of further interruptions with the link. Because sometimes it's slow and it'll drag and load. And we didn't want to have that happen in the middle of this. We figured it's a pretty important meeting. Being on Capitol Hill, and also you got the Capitol Hill presidential treatment. And you get to hang out in my little sanctuary. So I'll just spin this around a little bit so you can see.
Nice, yeah.
Got my poppy plant from California. Got my pumpkins and my Christmas tree out front. I'm growing it. And then
that's nice. Oh wow.
Got the beach cruiser right there and the mountain bikes when I got to get outdoors and hit the PCH with my Kobe Bryant tank top on and the muscles flaring.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
enjoy the weather.
we keep it very SoCal around here. So
hey, I love it. I love it.
So right now, here, live from the front of Kevin's Real Angler Sanctuary, we have Diana.
Yes.
Garcia. Sorry, I thought I had my notes right here. I didn't want to hack up names, and I'm terrible with names.
You're all good, yeah.
All right. And let's talk a little bit about Capitol Hill Ocean Week, what you do with the foundation, and let you introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so my name is Diana Garcia. I'm the Capitol Hill Ocean Week Manager at the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. My 1 year is actually coming up pretty soon. So I actually started last year, really in the last kind of planning times of CHOW. Before that, so I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to school out here in the DMV and then ended up moving back home, came back out here. And funny enough, I always tell folks, when I was in college, I actually had an internship at the Ocean Foundation. And while I was there, I actually was able to attend Capitol Hill Ocean Week. So that was my first large conference in my desired industry, and then kind of full circle, here I am now managing my the conference that was the first one that I ever attended. So that was really great.
You're on Instagram too right now. I got you live on the gram real quick.
Hello.
I'm always surprising her when she got on the phone last week when we met. I was in a career day, and she came into the studio to a table in a cafeteria full of
kiddos.
Yeah, fourth graders and stuff.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think of that?
I love it. Hello. I love the authenticity. I love that you're in the community. I think that's the biggest thing. And sometimes we kind of lose that the higher up we go, is that we're no longer directly in the community. We're on the more, maybe behind the scenes on the higher levels, and the community is where you should be, and I think that that's what matters. It all goes back to the community. So I love it.
So I call the football games out here too, the youth football games. But I always remember Forrest Gump. No matter how rich he got, he went and cut the grass at his elementary school on his little lowrider, on his little lawnmower, and that's what I take into consideration as we're growing to stay within the community.
Yeah. It's really important. I think, some of the stories that, other folks have are really inspirational because you are able to bring it back to the community. And I think that's really what matters in the end. I know when I was kind of starting out in my career, that was kind of I'd say the first step I wanted was to be in my community. So that was kind of the best part about going back home to Cincinnati and being able to work there. I worked for an organization called Groundwork, and at Groundwork, we did a lot of work with youth and workforce development. So it was really nice to give back to the community. And then, here we are back in DC trying to get back to the larger community of the U.S. as a whole. Yeah. With CHOW. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, this lady.
I was going to say with CHOW, that kind of goes back to the community as well.
So how did you guys? Let me ask you this then. we'll jump around a little. We don't really script any of this stuff. We kind of just hear what you're saying, and then we'll jump in and we talked a little bit. When you introduced me on the panel, so just to give people an idea, I will be speaking on a panel when I get out there, and that's why we're having this conversation. We booked some of our accommodations, and then I said, hey, would you mind being on the podcast? Scotty here wanted to know if you want to do the podcast, and I thought it was a great idea. And then also about streaming live from there, wherever we could share those links to. Scotty be doing that back from California. But when you introduced me to go on the panel, you guys going to call me Community Kev or Kevin Brannon? Do you have an idea yet?
If you have a preference, if you want to be called Community Kev, then we are more than happy to call you that there. It's really up to how you like to be addressed. We try to have a variety of folks, be as a part of speakers and CHOW as a whole. And, depending where you're from, you might have a different, way that people address you, a different nickname. So if you want to be introduced as Community Kev, we can introduce you as Community Kev. We are down for that.
One of the things Scotty said, right? Because again, like I told you, we keep it SoCal over here, right? The way I don't have a regular suit and tie, or, I have like some, we call it corporate Kev button-up shirts and stuff, that I've taken some of my sponsor shirts like AFCO and Mossy Oak and stuff and put my logos on the side. But he goes, what are you gonna wear on Capitol Hill, man? Like, how are you gonna go there? You're gonna go with your hat twisted to the side, to the back, and all b-boy? And I'm like, no, man, we'll go in there cash, to make sure we want to, again, keep that authenticity of the California angler and what we look like. That's why our fishing show is called Real Anglers Fishing Show California, because we want to make sure we have that aspect. But that was one of his questions about going to Capitol Hill. How would I be up there? But you got to know the room, maybe respectful. It's not I got to go up there. But that was funny that Scotty had how was his make mention of my wardrobe for such an extravagant, without losing the authenticity of my my outgoing self,
For sure. And, I definitely agree. I think come as you are. The biggest thing is we want people to show up authentically. We want people to be who they are, show up as they are. And, and I think that that's kind of the beauty of having the diversity of the panel that we have for all of the different sessions, that people are going to come as they are. So, you might we've had some folks from different like tribal councils, and we had, I believe it was the Gullah Geechee group community come last year. And I believe Queen Quet, she had on her entire attire. She brought a flag and everything, and it was beautiful. So I think it's wonderful to show up as authentically as you can.
Cool, man. So I want to tell our listeners and stuff, like what kind of panels are going to be going on, with CHOW, and like the different panels, and maybe a little bit about the one that I'll be speaking on specifically. But if you could go in a little bit on, what the, a little bit more into what CHOW is and a couple of days there. So.
Yeah, so CHOW originally started as a one-day gathering where folks would come together, talk about the different marine and conservation and policy issues. It's now expanded into a whole week of events. So we start off on Monday with the Hill Day. The Hill Day gives people the opportunity to go, talk to the members of Congress, see Hill staff, go to different briefings and different variety of events around there. And then Tuesday and Wednesday this year, the days will kind of switch among the years at times, but Tuesday and Wednesday this year are the 2 days of the conference. In those 2 days of the conference, we will have a variety of speakers. We'll have some keynotes. This year, we've implemented a little bit differently our affinity space. So we have a sanctuary affinity space, and in that space, we'll have folks give presentations, give show film screenings, maybe have a couple of Q&As. So there's a variety of things happening on those 2 days. And then on the Thursday this year, which is actually a new day, we're having a partner day. So we've heard in the past that a lot of feedback from our partners, like, hey, we have an event during Capitol Hill Ocean Week, but we want to be a part of the week. We're not the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation specifically, but we want to be a part of the week. So we decided to implement and bring in this new day called the CHOW Partner Day, and where folks are able to, have their own events, and we're going to be promoting that and, sharing that along with folks throughout the couple of days of the conference. So that's kind of what CHOW looks like this year specifically. It's been expanding, and new things have happened among the years as CHOW has continued. This year specifically, so our theme is on the next wave. last year, so we try to make the themes kind of in order in a way, if that makes sense. So last year we had a leadership theme. So it was really focusing on the leaders of the industry in different facets, whether that's all the way from, our fishermen and fisherwomen on the water, all the way to our political, figures in office, to the folks working on communications, technical side, exploration, whatever that may be. So that was last
Cool,
year.
man.
This year, we shifted into the next wave. So we talked about the leadership, but what does this new wave of leadership look like? This next wave of leadership. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks like you for sure. It looks like you. You are, yeah, like that. And those are things that we want to showcase. So, what are the new advancements? What are the new, innovative ways that people are thinking of helping our environment and moving forward in the conservation work that we have in our ocean. So that's kind of what this year focuses on specifically. And then going into more of the sessions, we have 6 sessions this year. In the past, we typically had a couple of more, but we wanted to really give people the opportunity to just focus on these kind of bigger buckets, and give more opportunity to just mingle and talk and meet the people in your industry. So this year we have 6 sessions. The first one will be really a roundtable of these different leaders. So perspective of maybe an exploration person, someone who's working in those blue tech spaces, a variety of folks there. So really focusing on that round table, those leaders, and really what that next wave is. So
Is
that'll
that, is
kind of
that let me jump. Is that
yeah.
on Thursday? You're talking about the 6 sessions on that's just Thursday,
No, no,
or is
no.
that
That'll
part of?
be that'll be for the conference on the 2 days of the conference.
Because I was about to say, look, I know we sound I'm good till Wednesday, but you're making me want to stay till Thursday, even though I got to
No,
get back to
yeah.
Sacramento. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if I leave there at noon and I make up
Yep.
2 hours, so I got to be back in Sacramento for for check presentation. We got a
Yeah.
California Chamber of Commerce grant,
Hmm.
so I got to come back to Cali. But when you started
Yeah.
saying that, I was already doing the hour. Okay, if I hang out until 1 o'clock, but what there's a delay, I got
Yeah.
because if you don't show up, then yes. But literally, as you're talking about how cool this stuff sounds and exactly
Yeah.
what's up in our watch our fishing wheelhouse,
Okay. Okay.
I'm like, man, I got to stay out there Thursday too, or am I going to come back next year and get in on this on that Thursday? Because everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
Uh, is what we go. But I'm sorry, I just wanted to check to
Yeah.
make sure because I was already planning to stay next. Yeah, me thinking about
Oh, for
staying
sure.
more.
No, you're all good. You're all good. No, yeah. Sorry. Let me clarify. So the 6 sessions will be in the 2 days of the conference. So we'll
Okay.
have 3 on Tuesday and then 3 on Wednesday. Um, so just those, and then you'll be on one of them on Tuesday. You'll be on that last session on Tuesday. But just kind of seeing what those different conversations will be about. We'll have a conversation around like seafood and
Mm.
just the process of seafood, processing seafood. What does that look like in the U.S. currently? There are lots of conversations, with fisheries and, just with the different markets and seeing, how do we want to process this stuff internally? A lot
Hmm.
of things are done overseas. And so a lot of folks are wanting to focus on how do we make things US based, US processed. And just kind of focusing on that conversation there. That'll be on Tuesday as well. And then the session, obviously, that you'll be a part of as well, will be on Tuesday, that last session, focusing on really that community piece. So, how are these public organizations and private organizations coming together to partner? What are we doing in the community? How are we touching base with our partners in the industry, but connecting them to the community and talking about, the impacts of that? So, whether it's tourism or it's our culture, our maritime and cultural heritage that we are wanting to obviously preserve. So that one will be a large conversation. I'm very excited to see
Is it an hour
all
and
be
is
coming
it
together.
an hour and 15 minutes for that?
Yes, so the time slot is an hour and 15 minutes. The discussion will probably be around an hour or so. So we'll have a couple of maybe like opening remarks, maybe some closing remarks to kind of set the stage for you guys to come up on stage. But for the most part, it'll be about an hour long conversation.
Good. Yeah,
So
because
it'll be a packed.
that's a lot to that's a lot to conversate
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
I'm
and there's
like,
a lot
okay.
there, and I think that there will be more. There will lean on maybe one topic or a couple other topics more than the other, and we'll see how the conversation flows. But it's really just to, as we go back to that piece of authenticity, I think it's really just to show what are the different pieces that are being done in our communities, directly in our communities, on the ground, and then also on that maybe higher level, with those private partnerships. How is that stuff being communicated and how are we collaborating with the public organizations as well?
Yeah, man, because that's
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we focus on. we're working on a marketing campaign because of what I do, right? I'm in film, right? I do an educational show, a nonprofit, children's books, right? Going into retail, but like like the new technology and innovation, we did a little. That's what we kind of wrote in for this chamber grant to write about how we are innovators, and leadership is one of them. One of them was impact, another one was like employee relations, and because and then you talked about the blue tech, where we also talk about the blue economy, right? Like what are the different types of economic careers on the water, law enforcement, biology, doing art and film, underwater welding. Like there's so many, just as a few to say, right? Again, and also like processing fish, and how do we have a sustainable fishery and limitations, right? And how do we teach, how we live in harmony with the environment, but also how can we make a career out of it and still enjoy the table fare of it, or snorkeling, or these other great recreations that we do. And a lot of it is culturally. Some cultures can't swim, right? We got a lot of people that in our area that just learning, say, hey, we're going to the ocean, and they're like, no, that's, we don't swim. So there's these other things. I don't like to use the term barrier. I just think just because you have a cultural difference doesn't make it a barrier. If I don't want to go ride horses, there's no barrier. It's just not something that I grew up doing, right? So introduction of that, how to have a career. So it sounds like a lot of the same topics and people you're going to have speaking. It's good to hear that, because sometimes, again, I do a lot of stuff with ASA in the fishing industry. I do stuff with NOAA out here, and sometimes some of the terms just make it seem like it's just always got some kind of, it's more of some of the outdoor experiences are too extravagant for people to afford. And I just think some of it is just instruction, things like that. So to hear about it and then also say, yeah, man, there's some great career opportunities out here for youth coming up, because these kids they want to be impactful. They want to be, it's almost like the 60s over again, right? Like we're radical. We want to be a part of change. We want to see society's, growth and stuff. And they are fired up. And I think that's why our program's called Oceans of Opportunity, is to really highlight that versus look at all the negativeness that keeps people away. Because again, I think sometimes their messaging is kind of like a culture vulture, right? Let's lean on these, in our marketing meeting, they showed us another nonprofit that somebody used that they work with autistic kids primarily, right? And they raised like 100-something million. Wow. And then you had another guy like me that's like, I don't want to isolate. We do work with them, but they're like, because we thought if we put like you serve with underserved kids, I'm like, but I can't go the Sally Struthers way of getting my donors, right? We serve everybody. There is no reason, right? So if it's gonna help me raise funds to tug on people's emotional heartstrings, I'd rather, like I just posted, we're an exciting nonprofit. But anyway, that's what a lot of voice that I like to say too, is that way they're not always looking at it from like, oh, they just, for those purposes, versus going, like you said earlier, about going into that cultural side, and even having cultural people come in and do their talk on what they're doing in the Channel Islands, like where we live at, in this region, who's the storyteller, who's coming into my classroom and talking about their ancestry history? Is it somebody with gray hair talking about it, or is it one of their elders or something that have some real genuineness to their culture and their heritage?
It's funny. As you were speaking, there were a couple of things that came to my mind. It's funny, when I first went into college, I actually was a criminal justice major, and I was like, oh, I want to be like Criminal Minds and Law and Order, SVU, all that stuff. And obviously at that time, I still was very interested and passionate about the ocean and its animals. And as I was kind of figuring out my career, I was like, okay, how can I bring together law enforcement and like marine conservation? And obviously this was years ago now, but at that time they were like, well, that's not a thing. Like, you don't really do that. And I'm like, dang, that kind of sucks. But those are questions that, the students now, like kids now, are thinking about, okay, well, what if I want to be like, Criminal Minds, and I want to be doing this stuff, but I also have this passion for the environment. How can I bring those two together? So I really appreciate you kind of bringing that up, that there are these different opportunities. There are positions and roles, and also, and maybe this is because of my university, you can always create something new. Like I always think there's always a new role you can make. I feel like actually in my career, a lot of the roles that I've been in have been roles that they've created. I wouldn't say for me every time, but sometimes, a couple of times it's been for me, of like, well, we want you on the team. We appreciate the work that you're passionate about, and let's bring you on the team.
Yeah, because you're bringing a value, right? Exactly. Of these things that are going on. And that's what a position should be made for,
Based on, like, exactly.
Right. So, because you can't say we're going to address this, but we're not going to have somebody
find
in there,
something to
right?
do
You
it.
know, yeah, you got like, well, who's
Yep.
going to execute, right? You can't have volunteers executing everything for you. Like you need to design
Exactly.
somebody there to really execute on the goal and the mission. So
Yeah.
that's
Exactly. And then there was a kind of just on that community piece that was one of my favorite pieces of working at. I mentioned I worked at an organization called Groundwork. Groundwork has multiple.
excuse me. You don't
Yeah.
seem old enough to have all this that you've been through college and you've been through these
Yeah.
different places. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
look at you. You got to look like about 28 years old. I'm not playing guess your age or nothing,
I'm
but I'm like, wow,
25. So yeah,
your
even.
portfolio is, yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah,
You know,
I think that's the biggest thing that I appreciate also coming in, and thank you. I appreciate that coming into this field too is I had the opportunity to learn a lot of stuff in college. I think, especially as you work with a lot of youth, that's always the biggest thing I tell them. And I remember hearing this often when I was younger. You have to get involved. Like getting involved really helps you get and I won't say it's going to get you super far because it may not get you the job. However, I will say when you do get the job, or if you do get the job, you're going to know so much more than the people around you. I remember at some of my like last jobs, like even the simplest things of like tabling or knowing how to communicate certain things, it doesn't connect as much, but that's because I was involved. And that's because I joined so many different student organizations. I wanted to have jobs, during college and all of that. I wanted to take the opportunity to really learn this stuff to prepare me for when I was in the field. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'm slowly but
but
surely definitely getting more there.
you prove my point though, is like when you find what they like to do, they're going to be impactful about it. And that's kind of like our mission
Yeah.
statement, right? Like you said, okay, I want to work within the police. And it's funny, your story similar kind of to my daughter. She went to college to be a crime scene investigator. You know,
Yep.
and when she left, that's not what she left with. Now she's actually working with us as an intake manager.
Oh.
She got her bachelor's in she's still going to school to become a nurse, like that's her goal.
Oh
But
yeah.
it shifted. But she is working with us and working in the community and working in a hospital because she doesn't want to do that. But going back to it though, is like if there was something you could do, like be a veterinarian for animals on the ocean, right? Or you could be a cop. You could be in law enforcement, like you said, but you're defending animals, right? You're a warden and stuff, you
Yeah.
know. Opening that idea. But when you find out, like one lady, a teacher brought in a student to work on the boats.
Yeah.
And I said, but does he want to work on the boat? Because we put him out there for 10 hours a day. Maybe that's not what he wants to do. But if you really get into seeing what it is you want to be impactful about, I think is where you're going to they're going to dive in and have more passion and time because they're, you know what I mean? There's the mutual respect of what I'm really trying to do and want to be a part of. And that's what gives you that makes you dive in, with all that extra energy that you don't feel like you're giving away because you're kind of engulfed in what you love doing. So it's not like that's what you do. And then I think that's really the recipe for where you're at,
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say this too. I didn't go to school for like event planning and event management. I went to school. I mean, I got my degree in like environmental and sustainability studies. So I focused and studied, environmental justice and things like that. And more specifically, a little bit more in marine conservation as well. But I learned a lot of my skills of event planning through the things I was involved in, just simply because I liked to be in the community. I liked to work with people. I liked to plan events and on campus and work with my,
like, hey, we get to go to a party. What's up?
Yeah, like let's go, let's do this.
That's what it
or
really is.
whatever. Yeah, and then I was able
event
to
planning
really
ain't got to
gain
be
the
a rubber
skills.
chicken, right? It ain't got to be a rubber
Yes.
chicken in the same
Yep.
formal, like people, it's a new generation. If you ain't not
Yeah.
bringing something more entertaining and engaging, no wonder why people quit showing up, So that's another good part of having a different outlook. Like I remember when I was in the Chamber of Commerce and ours was a little old when I first started on the board of directors right here. And they were like, do we bring a bottle of wine out? Do we know? Like, how do you network? You know what I mean? And it was so prehistoric that, we were suffering because, again, nobody is, you're stuck in the used to be syndrome. Used to be. We've always done it. So, you could find a fun way. You should probably have fun doing what you do. Speaking of fun,
Exactly.
you see there's a squirrel running back and forth across my thing, and he stopped here. I thought he was going to.
Oh, I didn't see
I thought he
it.
was going to jump in on us real quick. I'm like, he was like, what y'all doing down there? What you guys doing?
I'm jealous.
Anyway.
You have it looks like it is beautiful out there, and it is rainy and gloomy over here for sure.
We've had 2 days of complete wind. I was supposed to go fishing white sea bass yesterday out at Santa Rosa Island. We got blown off the water because of the wind that we had. So this is the nicest day we've had in a couple of days.
Yeah.
We get a lot of marine layer, a lot of June gloom, May gray. So they broken up a little bit. So how did you guys come across me? Let's tell their audience
Yeah.
like how you heard about, the connection on how you heard about me, and to as soon as you sent me the email, I was like, I'm there. Let me just check my yep, clear the calendar. Yep, oh, DC's calling Capitol Hill. The host with the most, coast to coast. We're going all the way over there. So like,
Hey, yeah.
how'd you come across us or me?
Yeah. So, I know we had reached out a little bit earlier in the year originally for an event in Monterey Bay. So we were actually wanting to do. Well, I'll start here. A part of my job is not just Capitol Hill Ocean Week. I also plan events called Blue Beacons. So we have Blue Beacons that are basically, we like to call them smaller Capitol Hill Ocean Weeks. But by all means, it is just a much smaller event. But we try to bring the conversations from CHOW into the different communities that maybe we're not able to attend in person, or if we need to have a more deeper conversation on this topic or a different topic that's specific to the community that we're going to. So we were wanting to go into Monterey Bay. We were wanting to have a conversation on recreation and tourism. And my colleague that was working with me pretty closely on that, Brittany, mentioned you, and she said, Kevin's doing really great things, in California, not too far from LA, and working with the community. So we immediately were like, oh yeah, we want to have him on this panel. And then unfortunately, the world kind of got on fire a little bit. Lots of shifts and everything in the industry, and we were not able to have that event. Excuse me. So we decided, as we were doing child planning, we were like, well, Kevin would fit perfectly here. Like this would be a wonderful panel for him to speak on. And we immediately, we were all for it, and we submitted the invitation. So I want to say Brittany, she does a lot more work, kind of more on the West Coast, and works with our sanctuaries a bit more. So I believe that's kind of how she probably heard more about you. But yeah, she sent you over, and we were like, yep, let's go ahead and send that over. That'd be great. And then just sent her a message like, hey, we're going to send Kevin an invitation. She said, oh, he'd be wonderful. Yes, please go ahead and do that. And so, yeah, we're super excited to have you. I think, as I mentioned before, I think that piece to the community, being on the ground, being really a part of that work that's being done. Like I mentioned, it's easy to fall into the behind the scenes, fall into, you're kind of just delegating things, but to be, at the schools, in the environment, on the water, all those things, it's really powerful to be able to speak to that perspective of not just an industry leader, but someone who's still in the community directly.
Gotta be in there, man. That's
Yeah.
you gotta be. So it's cool that other people are advocating for us as well.
Yeah.
You say my name. I know. I think I might have worked with her initially when we did the Monterey. We worked with National Park Trust. You familiar with them?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with Ivan and Nick. And
Yeah.
so we're kind of being circulated. We met Ivan and Nick because of, I think, RBFF, or might have been
Yep.
NOAA. Grace at NOAA, because they needed somebody to take military families out here, Blue Star families.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool, that they calling me in California for us to do the work. But yeah, I just love doing the work, man. All the other stuff
Yeah.
that's where,
It's just the work.
yeah, that's honestly, you know what I mean? Because you got to be, plus I'm a little disruptive and bold. And I think people like that,
I think
because
that's
sometimes
good.
the bureaucracy part of it is a limitation versus where Crazy
Yep.
Kev keeps
Yep.
it real, like we keep it real. But so if I'm not doing it right for my people and out there showing them and encouraging them, then it's all for show, right? You got to really be in
Mhm.
there to again, when somebody said the other day, oh, you're a celebrity now, and I'm like, I just seen me get this award for leadership, but I've been doing this in these other industries, I've been doing this for a decade. And then
Yeah.
and I went to an elementary school. The lady was like, hey, you know what, stop talking about these critters. She's like, we're studying heroes right now, and you're a local hero, and we need to make sure that we embrace
Yep.
who is in front of us, kids. And I was like, starting to get a little teary. I'm like, don't talk like that. I'm just here to
Oh,
talk about, I ain't here for myself. I'm here to,
yeah.
really put it on there. But then some of the technological side, seeing how these kids really loved YouTube with the
Oh,
new
yeah.
after the pandemic and being on devices and what's going on, that we started taking our children's workbook and putting
Yeah.
our YouTube videos in there, because then that gets them to draw in more, like a modern day
Yeah.
Teddy Ruxpin, right? Instead of putting a cassette tape in the back of a bear and reading a story, our workbooks come with me on my YouTube channel, So it was kind of an
Mm.
introduction of seeing the market and where we are as the era and technology
Yeah.
of our new generations, but then how to incorporate it and bring that all together. But
Yeah.
if you're not
I
in the
think that's
mix,
important.
yeah, if
I think it's
you got to
important
be
to
in
do
there.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's important to adapt to the times too, because I think that's where a lot of um it can be hard. Like it can definitely be hard, especially when you're working with I think for me my my soft spot is like the kids and then the animals, obviously. So it's like when you're working with communities, there are lots of tough stories that you might hear, so
Right.
it's a lot of it's a lot that you're taking in. So you really do have to be there for the right reasons. And I think that, through my experience, at groundwork, working with students there specifically, that was something that I really took on. I was like, oh, wow, this is like, you have to love to do this. You have to love doing this. You have to really be passionate about this work to really stay in that, because it's tough. It can get really tough out there, especially with the kids. And the kids aren't always nice. They're going to be your hardest critics at times. Oh, you look like you're tired today. All right, I am tired today. What's wrong with that? So it's a treat. I definitely love that, and I think that it's important to really want to care about the work that you're doing, and then adapt with those kids too, because they're gonna grow. They're gonna grow. They're gonna have new things they're learning. I think especially right now with like AI and all that, everyone's learning that. So how do we leverage that? How do we use that to help us reach those different audiences? Stay in correlation and relating to these kids now, because they are in a whole different society and world than I was in, and then obviously as everyone else is in as well. So yeah, I think
I look at it from a couple perspectives, right? Like we used to use my kids would be my first volunteers to see,
yeah.
For other kids to see that, these kids are brave enough to do it, right? So my kids cutting bait or pulling the crab, and they make other kids like peer-to-peer influence, And then also some of the way that technology has changed, but it's kind of the same. Like when computers came in, my mom was using a typewriter and it switched up, right? And it's like these new devices are, or if you went from a transistor radio where your grandpa said you bought a TV, it's going to rot your brain. Some of the stuff kind of feels like people are just going into their grandparents instead of embracing some of it, that you could use these tools. They're more afraid of the tools than they are thinking about it. There's a story about the guy from Pixar that started Pixar, went to Disney, and all the illustrators got together to get him fired because they were afraid of this new kind of motion picture was going to put them out of business. So they got him fired. And then he comes back 10 years later with his own Pixar that Steve Jobs helped fund, because again, they were innovative, right? So sometimes the inventors are the young ones and the ones that are thinking of this new way. Like you said, when you got to some of those positions that you got to reverse engineer it and make a position. And I think that's an important part of these kids that's where they're at. Just because it's different doesn't mean you didn't go through a different age when you were in the 70s or 80s, you know what I'm saying, of an advancement, and also like working with the kids, because I feel like some of their imagination, it hasn't been tainted yet, nobody's cut their butterfly wings, right, and said, no, you got to go this way, no, they got this imagination and they're ready to give it a try if you allow them to again, give them responsibility, right? And you give them something to do where they feel like they're leading versus, we could do that or do that. And I remember I went to a school function. It was all adults trying to tell kids what to do, and there wasn't a kid in the room, and it was all these dignitaries and all these higher ups and stuff, Boys and Girls Club, all these other ones. And we were in the tower here at Oxnard, a big one, and all these people were there. And I was just like, how come they ain't here? And then you're trying to use your phone. This is a few years back, like 10 years ago. Where you're trying to figure out how to use the phone, and these kids could show you how to utilize it,
Easy.
But instead of bringing them into the discussion and making it a part of what you think they should be doing without hearing what they want to be doing. So I took put a little pin in it. And I think that's some of the way our brand works, and myself thinking like that. And especially me being not a scholar, I'm not very academic, right? I failed the third grade to second grade, fifth grade proficiency test, seventh grade proficiency test. They just moved me from 8th to 9th grade. I wasn't allowed to even walk the line because of my behavior, I guess. But that's why I like working with those kids, because some of us aren't meant to sit in a chair and sit down and go through this arithmetic, right? We need the art. We need more constructive stuff to do. And I think by me embedding that in there and being a voice for them to get in there is why I do the work too, though, because I do see it from their perspective as well. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
So I think that's so if I was to get out of that and just be on TV and doing what I'm doing, then I'm leaving my post,
100%. And it's funny you mentioned that. I have like quite a few friends from at home that, struggled a little bit in school, and they ended up not going to college and all of that. And it's just like, that might not be your path. And I think that we've been conditioned so much to believe that we have to, pass every single grade and go to college and do all these things. And if that's what you want to do, that's hey, go ahead and do it. All the power to
Hey,
you.
the person that's giving my surgery on
Yeah.
me, I would like to know that they went through medical school and got a surgery. So you
Yes.
understand, right? Like, I don't want somebody just
Yes.
practicing on me. Like, yeah, I've seen it on TV. I could do that. You know, so
For
yeah, there's some
sure.
things that you might need a whole lot of instruction for.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And I think, and, you know, that makes me think, I've always heard like not everyone's meant to be a leader at every moment. You know, like sometimes we are supposed to, I don't want to say follow behind, but you are supposed to, you know, let somebody else lead. You can take someone else's lead. You can let someone else lead
Mhm.
and allow them to lead you to a better place. And they can, like, you know, when I'm at the doctor's office, I don't need to tell the doctor what's wrong with me. They let me know. Well, I can tell them, hey, I'm feeling these things. What's wrong with me? You let me
Mhm.
know. Like, you are the professional. You are the lead in this case. And then in other cases, if the doctor comes to me and he's like, hey, I want to plan an event for doctors tomorrow night. I need a reception, da 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 da, whatever. Cool, I've got you. I am the lead now in the situation. So I think that's a big thing too, to realize that we're all leaders in our own ways, and you don't have to lead at every single moment.
Yeah,
And
there's
with that, you
specialists
know,
for everything, and that's how you know there's
yeah,
abundance for everything, right? I was an exterminator,
yep,
and the lady's asking me about like her garage door. I'm like, probably should call the garage door guy, you know, not
yeah,
here to try to do this to fix it, you know, and tell your garage door guy
exactly,
not to be calling me to get rid of your spiders. Like, that's my, you know, or call the plumber, you know.
exactly,
There's enough, and that's why trades are
exactly.
important. But you know,
Yep,
and not everybody I think wants to be a leader either. I work with people that just
yeah,
like just getting by, and that's okay too, you know. Not
that's okay
everybody
too.
is considered a leader. And then another way, thinking of that, I know we're kind of going some different directions, is that
Yeah,
I actually watch leadership. So that way we could say, okay, if you have a leadership role, but you're not developing your staff, then you're just, you know,
mm,
you're not really leading, you know what I mean?
yep,
And so just because you have a title doesn't make you a leader either, you know?
a
And
hundred
I think I
percent.
could keep all that into there when I'm talking with kids and what we're doing. So that way you can humanize people versus
Yes,
categorizing or putting them, you know what I mean? Like, give you some real
yes.
empathetic side of, where they're at or what they really want to do and how they see themselves. And then sometimes they accidentally, like I had a kid yesterday stumble into leadership. He's like, I can't believe where I'm at with you guys, you know, because he led the whole kid fishing rod building. I'm like, well,
Oh,
again, we develop impactful leaders. I might be a little harsh sometimes, but that's
yeah,
because there's an expectation of being part of
yep,
what we're doing. And when you hold yourself to that, it all fall into place. And if you don't work
yep.
with people and you don't do that, well, then maybe there's another task that we could have you doing here, but we're going to get that ironed out, because that way, at least, you know, you're not wasting any of your time doing something you're not really comfortable with or wanting to do anyway, because you
A
don't get time
hundred
back, right?
percent. A hundred
So,
percent. And I think that's one of the most important things, especially with leadership and being in leadership roles. Whether you're a boss or supervisor or manager, whatever it might be, ultimately, I think what makes a great supervisor is wanting to build up their reportees as the people that they're supervising. Like, how are you wanting me to become the best employee that I can be to, yes, ultimately fulfill the goals here at the organization, but also my goals in life? And that's also the biggest part of that. I feel like that's what separates a lot of bosses from supervisors or like good managers, especially with that, because how are you actually helping me to shape myself to become a better professional as a
mhm.
whole? And I think that can get lost in translation, you know, power dynamics. And sometimes people are not, kind of how you said, people are taught leadership skills. And some people are not. And I think that a lot of people, yes, are in leadership positions and may not have the leadership skills to actually lead a team, because leading a team is also being able to uplift the team as you go along, like along the way. Um, so I think there's a huge difference in that. I don't think everyone necessarily is given the opportunity to work on that, or even has the tools, you know, may not know where the tools or the access to it. But I think that's really important. And I mean, I'll even put like a plug in my, like, for my boss. I mean, I appreciate my boss a lot. You know, we talk about conversations of, you know, how can I not only make Chow a better, you know, week and overall event, but also how am I building myself as a professional for future events? How am I building the organization? So there's a conversations that I appreciate on, you know, my own personal experience with my supervisor, but also is kind of builds my expectations for other places and other ways
Sure.
of from the leaders that I'm around of, okay, it's not just about, you know, let's get the work done, but how are you building yourself up while you're doing this work? How are you setting yourself up for success? How are you building those skills along the way? You know, all of that I think is a part of that piece.
I think that's what's good about the CHOW, is like by having the 2 days, and it sounds like the six different speakers and bringing in
Yeah.
leadership is like, you don't miss, you know, it's not just fishermen, it's not just
Yeah.
scientists, right? And again, how do we, you know, they use the word empower a lot, right? And I think that's part of the is development is important to the empowerment part, right? If I put
Yeah.
you on the pitcher's mound and you're just throwing pitches, you're just throwing the ball over home plate, but you haven't been taught to throw certain pitches. Now you're just throwing the ball over the place, right? So you got to develop them for those positions. So by opening it up to so many different type of people can say there's a different positions for us to go after, right? Yeah, I really find joy in that part. I'm finding joy on the water recreation, or I want to find joy in the protection part. I want to find joy in the scientific part, right? And that way people know that they're not only that you're going to be in position in something you love to do, but the people that are ahead of you are going to be making sure that you're coming along the right way, but also leaving enough meat on the bone for you to try an adventure and try some new modifications to enhance it, without being shut down or, this is the way it's been done kind of. And that's where I think we are as a society right now, whether the world's going, wow, to everybody is a chance for anything. That time there's a transition, and it could be from power, right? Like all the old people, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Let's say the people that have been doing it for so long are kind of aging out with their tactics, right? Yeah. And there's new regimes coming in. I've seen it in different industries, and it's good because, like I say, my mom was like, hey, I'm out of the office. I don't do computers. I'm a typewriter. I could type 57 words a minute with whiteout, and I'm gonna leave this to you guys, right? And right now it's just a time. So we do get a chance to be inventors, engineers, pioneers in the same industry, but with a new cell in our new wind in our sails, but for the same destinations,
Yeah.
And that was good. Hey, that was good. Somebody preaching up here.
That was a good. I was gonna say you should write that one down. Write that one down. I was gonna say I think that's really important, and I think with the shit, kind of how we mentioned, like adapting and going kind of back to how you said with CHOW, like I think that's a wonderful place for it. I remember when I attended my first CHOW back in 2019, I was able to meet his name was Lee Crockett, and I think he's the founder or executive director of a shark organization. I'm not going to butcher it and say which one because I don't remember. But at the time, I mean, you'll see, I have like shark tattoos and I have shark stuff everywhere. Yeah, I got a little shark tattoo here.
Can you make your swim? That's my hammerhead. I can make it swim.
Oh, that one's not. No, I can't make mine swim. I'll get more though to try to.
I'll show you. If you grab your hand and just squinch your fist, it'll swim.
Oh, you can swim.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there, and I'll show you when you get here. But that's the nice thing. I was able to meet him, and then, as you kind of mentioned, you're able to see what are the things you do and don't want to do. I realized I did not want to do the science stuff. I didn't. Everyone used to ask me, like, "You want to be a marine biologist?" I'm like, no, I don't want to be a marine biologist. I don't think that's quite where I'm interested in. I'd be more interested in figuring out not so much the biology of the animals, but more so how can we just save them? How can I be a part of saving them and rebuilding their populations? And that was a part of kind of listening on that panel and realizing the different things. I was like, it's cool. Yes, you can go out there shark tagging. And eventually, I'd love to do something around those lines, just for fun or, experiential. I'll say that more experiential. But I knew in that time that's not quite what I want to do every day in my life, in my livelihood. So I think kind of how you mentioned, it's a great place for people to be able to just hear the different perspectives. What are the different roles? What are the different things people are doing? There are so many roles that people have that I'm like, I didn't even know people did this. I didn't even know there was someone who was assigned to do this stuff. But it's cool to learn that, there's essentially a role for everything. Even how you mentioned with the law enforcement. There is the law enforcement out there. Even though I heard back then there wasn't too much of that, I'm sure there's been development, and there probably was, but it wasn't thought of in that way.
So no, because it's changed. Like, you want to be approachable in law. Like, if you come from the hood in the ghetto, right, they're looked as the oppressors, right? So you see a badge, you think, so they're trying to change the way the badge is being seen as well. You're going to come up to me and start harassing me, obviously, as soon as you see me, like, your license, let me see you go, you know what I mean? You start feel like you're being some type of isolated, you know what I mean? And now your treatment, right? So that even the badges are like, we're got to be more community. That's what I said when I started about doing this interview, is that people see a logo and don't know exactly what their messaging is,
100%.
So going to these other summits to hear those other entities saying we need our local people too. Well, if you're local here, the population looks like this. So you need some officers that might resemble that. So that way people, their guards are down when you go to approach them versus automatically get into a defense of that, right? So they're opening mind on some of that as well. Man, you said so many cool things right now. I was just like, my brain was like, bing, 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 bing. I had a couple things to say, but I know that one stood out. But also, I was going to say, as a filmmaker, when the credits roll, I
Yeah.
might be the host, but you could see all those positions too, right? Set director,
100%.
right? There's editor, there's lighting, there's grip.
Yes.
So I accumulate that too when we're building our team of people
Yeah.
that you work with, and your team does different roles, and
1000%.
they like what they're doing. Like I just want to do audio. And I keep that. I think that
Yeah.
same perspective when I was in college doing it as a filmmaker. The people that had no passion at all to be on camera, where they were like, Kevin, you got talent, you need to do it. And I was just like on one take. And some people are like, but then what I would do though is I would still be part of the team taping down chords and figuring out how they use the grid, because I'm still a
Exactly.
student. So I'm not like I'm just the host, but that was a place
Yeah.
to be like, okay, but you got to have those right people in position. So it's very similar in other industries, right? But again,
Yep.
just like that, anywhere you see those credits roll and they're like, wow, I didn't know there was that many
Yeah.
levels to this game. Because I only see what's on screen,
Yeah.
and then it kind of just use it. I'm a metaphor specialist, right? So as a metaphor of good quality production or good quality execution, right? When you have that ta-da moment, that there's a team of people behind you that are doing it in different roles, and that's what you get
Yes.
to showcase in your at CHOW. Is like, I could be I could be on the boat, but maybe I'm not doing all the scientific stuff. Maybe again, I could film that for Shark Week, right? Things like that, to
100%.
showcase that there's a team of and then maybe you get into something like, hey, I didn't know that there was this over here. Then it could help you segue more depth that you want to
Exactly.
take it,
Yeah, and two things came to my mind when you said that. With film, first of all, or well, I'll say team thing first of all. When you go onto the website and look at Capital Ocean Week, that's not all me. Like that's the team that comes together to put the website together and bring all this information and all that. So it's more than just me to put it together.
On
And
the
then yeah,
feedback, I know I've been scrolling up and down looking at it. Look, we're
yeah,
going to be on this picture here. So I've been on that
yeah,
CHOW website for a couple of days, by the way. So
exactly.
whoever did that, tell them one of the speakers started to look great, and I was all over
Thank
it. So
you. Great, great. Yes, but that's not just me. That's a team that comes together and we work on this together. The second thing that kind of came to my mind through film, I'm not sure. Did you see the movie Sinners that came out recently?
no, I heard about it, but no, I have not seen it
Oh,
yet.
it's a really great movie, but they have some moments in the movie that, well, first of all, Michael B. Jordan, he
Yeah.
plays a twin. So he plays himself twice at the same exact time. So those were things coming through my mind of, because I was looking at it a little skeptical at the beginning, the technical side of it, of, okay, well, how are you playing two people at the same exact time and you're this close to them? And then, there was a scene later in the movie where, like someone was on fire and it's like, okay, there's a stuntman for that. So there are so many aspects coming together, and I was able to see some of the behind the scenes clips and stuff. So it comes together, and you're like, yes, this is a full team, a team that's someone that's putting out the fire right afterwards. The stuntman themselves, the actor that's coming in to replace the stuntman to go back into his position. The folks who are holding the microphones, the camera crew, like there's so much to it. So that just kind of came to my mind as you were talking about films. Is very similar. I mean, by all means, I'm not acting over here, so it's a little different. But over here, we do have a full team. Our communications team, is working to get all the stuff up on the site and to make sure that we are communicating with folks and sending emails. And then we have myself, who kind of works more on that
But you know
program
what?
side.
You are. But think about it this way: you're the production manager, right?
Yeah,
Because
essentially,
that's
yeah.
what it comes down to. And what you're doing is you're giving people a behind the scene look at our industry, right? And all you're
Yeah,
doing is putting out the trailers right now to get people interested. That's what you guys are doing. So you
exactly.
are
Yeah.
some type of a production manager, even when you're doing the theatrics of the speakers and how people watch it and
Yeah,
all that. So you really
that's
are
putting
putting
true.
on you are putting on a production and
Yeah,
letting
it's a
people
whole
see the behind
show.
the scenes. So it is still some type of it is a production, and you're putting it
Yeah.
together from making people want to look at it, be there, attend
Yep.
it, and then but the message of, again, so we stay on so I don't go to, because I'll go down rabbit holes, is that
Hey.
you are letting people behind the scenes, different collaborative efforts being out there, making people
Yeah.
leave wanting to know more, or maybe
Yep.
what's maybe more of a target of a bullseye of where they want to spend their time and effort. So you are putting on
Yeah.
a showcase production.
Yeah.
And then people get to see, I'm going to hear some stuff about other organizations or other work that people are doing that I might not have a
Yeah.
chance to meet anywhere else. So you're putting on a performance, you're putting
The
on a
whole show
production,
there.
you're putting a
Yeah.
behind the scene, and you're bringing a networking event together to all deal with things on the water. Is incredible.
That is true. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. No, it's funny thinking of it. not to go too like sideward random here, but it's funny just thinking of it as that piece of a production. Back in high school and like through college a little bit, I did like choir, so I was in choir for a while, so we had performances. So it's funny to think of it as, yeah, this is essentially a performance. You're prepping for the performance. You have your dress rehearsal, you have your practices, you have your meetings, all your stuff that you have there. You go through costuming, and we don't really go through costuming, but we got to make sure that everything looks good, the decorations, we look nice. So all of that, yeah, it's interesting to think of those things together or separately but very similar, that we are essentially putting on a production. We are not essentially, we are putting on a production, we are putting on a show for folks for the full week. So yeah, it definitely is. It's interesting to think about it in that way.
All right, we're coming up to 50 minutes. This thing went on. This is a good
Oh
conversation. So I got like one or two more quick questions.
yeah, for
So
sure.
is there pressure since you're on Capitol Hill, right? It's not like a production at school, right? Just thinking that
Yeah,
like, what is that like? Knowing that like, look where the product, look where it's at. It's like being in
yeah.
the Roman Coliseum or something. You know what I mean? This is like,
Yeah. I think there's always pressure. I'll say I am personally, I'm more of like a perfectionist, so I like things to go well. I like things to come out very well. So I don't think the pressure is so much from being on Capitol Hill, but just the pressure of making sure that folks are things are aligned. We're making sure the conversations are going in the right way. Even looking at those like any what are we calling them, basically like a plan in case anything happens. So like if there's like an accident, so like a safety plan, basically things around those lines, I think are the things that are kind of the most pressure of making sure that we have all of those plans, and just preparation really, I think, is the biggest pressure. I don't think so much of Capitol Hill. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
okay,
Granted, I was able to plan a different conference before this, called the Midwest Regional Sustainability Summit. So I think the pressure of the conference as a whole, I think I'm a little bit more used to, of just making sure that it all comes out correctly. Um, but yeah, I think Capitol Hill itself, they're just, you'll start to realize once you go there, everyone's just as goofy as we are. Everyone's goofy, everyone's just living, and they're just regular people. So we just talk to them like they're regular folks. And then obviously you got to be formal with them in email, and, like, and obviously respectful of like representative, whatever, or senator, whatever, governor, whatever, Mr. President, or whatever you want to, their correct title might be. But overall, they're just normal people. So I think for me, it's almost like I'm jaded. I'm just like, you're just someone's dad and
just another day at
someone's,
the office.
yeah, I'm just like, you're someone's brother and dad and son, just like, or daughter, whatever, just like anybody else. I'm just like, it's nice to meet you, and we'll keep going. So,
Ooh,
yeah,
that sounds like a really good perspective to have,
yeah,
because that way you keep it fun and you don't feel like you're such like that's really good, man.
yeah. And it reminds me how you were saying, like, with like remembering people are human, and like humanizing people. I think that's the biggest thing also in these roles, that we do meet a lot of great people. Last year I was able to meet like Dr. Enrique Sala, who is wonderful, and I've watched like all of his documentaries, and I'm like, oh wow, like it's crazy. You have a moment of, wow, this is who I've been watching all these years. And then you talk to them and you're like, oh wow, like you're just a nice person, just like anyone else here. So it's easy to humanize people, and it kind of does take off that pressure from you as well.
I know I'm waiting to meet LeVar Burton one day. That's going to be
Hey,
exciting when I finally get to meet LeVar Burton and be like, I was watching Reading Rainbows, and not be a bopper or a groupie, but like just to kind
yeah,
of talk to him about why I'm doing what I do because of his
yeah,
influence. All the way from
yeah,
watching him in Roots to you know um, Reading Rainbow and his
yeah,
documentaries and stuff. But just like that's the one I'm gonna be like, I've been like you said, I've seen all your stuff, like without, but you're still human. But that's a conversation I'm waiting, and I believe it in my brain. One day I'm gonna meet him.
it's gonna
Be
happen.
somewhere
Yeah,
together. Yeah, we're gonna stumble across each other. I'm gonna get
it's
my
gonna
yeah.
happen. I
Absolutely, man.
believe it.
Cool. All right, well, I'll let you go because we're at the 52-minute mark right now. That
Yeah,
was a great conversation. Check it out. Capitol Hill Ocean Week. I'm excited. Thank you so much for extending the invitation. I'm going to be out
yes,
there. Looking forward to doing what I do, networking and talking, and then also going.
yep.
I want to see the White House. Oh, anywhere you think I should eat?
Ooh, So the Chow staples are the Hamilton and Old Ebbitt Grill. Those are two spots that everyone goes to every single year. They are, I think, some of the oldest restaurants in DC. Don't quote me on that specifically, but they are very good. That's where you'll see the people in suits walking in, and they're going to get drunk and have a good old night, you know?
Hamilton and what?
The Hamilton and Old Ebbitt Grill.
All
And
right.
they're of walking distance of the hotel, and they're a walking distance of the conference of the Ronald Reagan building as well. So it's right there. You'll see everyone start to make their way on over there, and they'll be ready for the night. So yeah, that's typically the space. And then there are a couple good spots in DC for sure. Let me think. I'll have to think through it because there's some great spots for sure. There's some great food in DC, but there's just so many options that it's kind of a hit or miss. So I'll look at some options for you and definitely give you some for when you get here.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after the show. Gotta hit that. All right, and Scotty's just asking again one more time about the streaming the videos.
Yes. Yep. So it will be, if for anyone who wants to watch it online, we will already be live streaming the entire conference. So all the sessions. So they're welcome to register online. You'll have all the access and the links to go online to find or to be able to watch the live stream. And then if anyone's coming in person with you, folks are also welcome to, record by themselves. But it will be live streamed and available for anyone to watch.
So you can copy and paste those, Scotty.
Both days.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
That was a good conversation, man. That was a quick hour. Thank you so much for your time and the invitation. And I'm taking this opportunity very, very seriously. And it really is a honor to be invited and to be up there representing California. And just as hard as I work to get some of my work paying off and notoriety is all over, it's just I'm looking forward to it. I'm overjoyed.
We are so excited to have you. Can't wait to meet you in person. I will make sure to have a list of great places for you. And I hope you get to sightsee as much as you can, which granted, I will say DC is very easy to sightsee because everything is kind of together.
I ain't even going to be in my room except for the power nap and shave my head.
Exactly.
I'm not there to be in my hotel room. They might even not do the bed. I'm just going to jump on the pillows, power nap it out, jump back into my suit,
and get going.
That's it.
I love it.
See when we get back.
Exactly. Well, we're excited to have you, and we'll see you soon in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. Bye, Kevin.
Bye.
To learn more about Real Guppy Outdoors, please visit www.communitykevin.com. Brought to you by AftCo Fishing Apparel and Tackle, designed to perform. Channel Island Sport Fishing, offering deep-sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats, and more. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. See what's out there. Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. This has been a Rough Edge Studios production.